Hi all and welcome to another episode of An Evening with Thomas, and today's guest is Eric Lewis from the THI and MeWe group, and we look forward to hearing his story and life journey. But first, a piece of music that he selected. Hi all and welcome to another episode of An Evening with Thomas, and today's guest is Eric Lewis. It should be a rather interesting conversation. He's got a lot to say and I'm sure he'll deliver it in the best way possible, like all the other guests we've had on previous, and the music is all his selection as per the rules, as we say, of the show, and hopefully you'll all enjoy it today. This is my fourth show in 8 days, and hopefully I'll be able to keep up with Eric, and we'll have a good show. So, Eric Lewis, hi. I'm doing okay. It's been a long week, you know. We've had this is the fourth show in 8 days, and I look forward to doing the shows, but it's been an interesting week with the Tuesday and Thursday shows this week, and a lot was disclosed and a lot of hope to look forward to, and hopefully things will get delivered fairly soon. So we're going to hear about your life story today, and you'd mentioned you were raised in a family that kind of provided many living examples of caring and sharing for others in need. And it's kind of the premise of THI in many ways. And can you tell us a bit about being raised in a family that cares and shares? Eric, can we hold fire a minute, because someone's messing with the settings. Let me just double check it. Try and speak now and see if that makes a difference, because somehow the settings have been altered.
Okay. Am I coming through loud and clear now?
Let me just check. I'm waiting for somebody on the MeWe to give me the go-ahead.
All right.
We've had these fun and games. Yes, you're coming through fine. Right. So we'll restart that portion. This is Eric Lewis, one of the members from THI, and also from the MeWe group, and he's here to tell his story. And before we discuss or try again with your caring and sharing family that you were going to put forward, perhaps a little biography of who and what Eric Lewis is and where you've been and how you did, and then we can go into your story more.
All right. Well, my parents were migrants from Portugal that came here when they were 15, so I'm a first generation American, I guess you could say. But it was rather interesting because I was very much raised in the traditional Portuguese culture within, the American culture. So I got to see, two separate, cultures and how they differed and how they were, similar and things like that. So it, gave me an interesting perspective to start with. My first language was actually Portuguese. Even though I was born here, I didn't actually learn the language of English until right before I started preschool. So that was interesting also because, a Latin-based language and an American-based language are very different. And, they're kind of in reverse or opposites of each other. So I was able to kind of have to learn things forward and backwards to be able to get by, which proved to be helpful because, I was able to look at things forwards and backwards because I was already accustomed to that mental process. I was really independent from a very young age. And I have a photographic memory, so I remember things vividly in detail and as far back as being 1 year old. I don't remember everything, but the memories I do have, they're quite vivid. And, I was 1.5 years old and I was sitting in the crib and I was hungry. So I decided to go and climb out of the crib. I slid down the stairs on my backside, went into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator door, grabbed a chair, grabbed the bottle of milk, put the chair back, closed the door, put the bottle in my teeth, climbed back up the stairs and back into the crib and drank my bottle. And
resourceful then.
My mom comes in. I remember the look on her face. She comes in and she's looking at me kind of puzzled that there's an empty bottle in the crib with me, and she remembers not ever giving it to me. Yep. So she caught on to how that happened, by seeing me another time. So, I was very independent from the gate, which is good, but also, testing the parents when you have a very independent child that doesn't like to take orders. Yeah. Memory. And I was an only child, so I spent a lot of time alone and was able to develop focus because I was by myself a lot of time. I have a big family, so I have kind of sisters. Most of my cousins are girls that I grew up with, but, as far as siblings, I was an only child. So school was relatively easy. I enjoyed math and science, wasn't very much for English and that kind of thing because I felt it took, to get a good grade in English class, you kind of had to blow a lot of hot air to fill in the gaps to meet their 10-page requirement, and that wasn't really my nature. I'm someone who, I'd like to get straight to the point and get my point across as soon as possible and, not waste any more time or words in getting it out there. So, I did well in school, and then eventually as I started getting older, it was just not challenging enough. So I would kind of force challenges on myself by letting my grades fall and see if I could bring them back up in time so I didn't get grounded. But it was just something, I was always challenging myself to see if I could do it. And, a lot of that kind of, mentality came from my parents in that they treated me like an adult from the beginning. I was able to be a kid and everything that's about, but then also I was treated as an adult, and there's a time and a place for everything. Yeah. And, most of my parents' friends, they either had kids that were older than me or didn't have children. So many times I'd go out to dinner with, my family, and I'd be the only kid at the table. And, I behaved just like one of them because I knew that's what you had to do at that time. So I was fortunate in that, you know, my parents weren't one to like baby me, which wouldn't have sat well anyway. So it kind of worked out in that sense. I went to public school up until high school. Then I went to an all-boy Catholic high school and got to see firsthand of how the Catholic Church operates and how they cover up things that are bad for their image. So I got to see that in, you know, real life. And then my parents were business owners or entrepreneurs my whole life, so, you know, I understood that and was kind of immersed in seeing that and what that all involved and things like that. And it taught me a lot. One of the, you know, things that being a business owner teaches you is being resourceful and savvy and navigating through challenges. And, you know, nobody's going to solve your problem. You don't have a boss to go take, you know, a problem to for them to fix. So you got to fix it yourself or figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
So I got to see that, which was, you know, important and really helped shape my adult life as I, you know, went into business for myself also. Go ahands, Thomas.
That's good. So you went from school, and did you take any other jobs that you perhaps didn't like and then decide to go into your own business, or did you just go straight into your own business?
Usually I would spend about a year working for a company to learn how to do something. And then when my skill set and opportunities hit a glass ceiling, it was time for me to move out on my own. So I went to college for about a year and a half. And during that time, I had started a auto detail business where I pulled around a trailer on the back of my truck and was detailing cars while I was in college. And, you know, I was making good money for being 18 years old. And I'm in school and I'm hearing, you know, these teachers, I'm in college at that time, and I'm hearing these teachers lecturing about stuff, and I'm like, how does this apply to me today?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm out of here. And then I left college and, you know, decided to be the controller of my own destiny, you know. But I never stopped learning, you know. Even though I wasn't in school, I've still been educating myself all the way through, but educating myself on things that were applicable to my life and that I could do something with was kind of how I approach learning things. You know, I don't like to just know facts. I want to know something that I can do something actionable with the information.
Yeah.
And I, not somebody that likes to take the easy road through things. It's kind of boring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I, you know, always, you know, if we're going for a hike and there's the path that you take up to the hill and then there's a mountainside, I'm going to try to climb up the mountainside and see if I can get to the top before you get to the top on the path. Not because I want to win, but just to see if it's a challenge I can overcome.
Yeah.
So that's, so my adult life is, you know, was basically the 4-year loops, up until 2013. It was, you know, each 4-year increment from 2001 to 2013 was an exact, you know, in principle, an exact replica of the first cycle, just on a bigger magnitude.
Yeah.
Start something, you know, meteoric rise, probably around a year and a half in, good time, and then catastrophic fall. And then go broke, have to start over again, do it again, but this time a higher ascend and a longer fall, and then go broke again, start all over again. So, essentially I'm pretty well versed in starting over and starting from nothing.
Yeah. But in essence, just listening to you, that's kind of your nature in many ways, because you want to see how far you're going to go with yourself. Because too often we get stuck in a rut, and it's more convenient to just carry on doing the same things, live in the same house because it's comfortable, even though you don't like the area, or you might not like the weather, or etc., etc. Whereas you have decided that you need to be stimulated on all levels. Otherwise, like you said, you've got to have an interest in it. And if you do have an interest, you pour 110% into it. And if the interest starts to dwindle, then it all falls apart. And so it
very true.
Can you regenerate it? And this is the challenge. Basically, you set yourself. Well, that worked for that part. It now no longer works for me, so I need to go on a new path and go forward. And if that doesn't work, I'll keep going until I find the right path that I need to be on for a permanent move.
Exactly.
So, is that the case, that you need that sort of self-stimulus to keep yourself rolling?
Oh, yeah. If I'm not, and stimulation could be as, minor as sitting outside in nature and just being surrounded by beautiful things that I'm just in awe that what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So stimulation, could be as simple as that. But without being, having stimulation and challenges and, that kind of thing, I feel like I go stale.
Yeah.
And that's just, how I am,
Yeah. Well, that's what life's all about at the end of the day, is stimulus.
Yeah.
Setting ourselves, obviously you set higher goals because that's your choice. But at the end of the day, if we're all just going to be not prepared to make that change or be the change, this plays into the bigger picture where life's too convenient and we just start working Monday, count the days down, only a few more sleeps till I have a weekend, and wishing your life away. And then the weekend arrives and you might do something good on Saturday, and then Sunday you're kind of miserable because you're going back to work Monday, and it's that perpetual cycle of boredom that we have to step out of and start re-challenging ourselves and standing in our own sovereignty, which is kind of what we're up against doing currently. And so the fact that you recognise that, and I thought, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep challenging. And was there any point in your journey where you felt lost, or I don't know what I'm doing here and everything's wrong, and I'm going to give up or whatever? Was there any stage in your life that you felt that?
Well,
how did you overcome it?
Well, I had, whenever you make because as fast as something grew was as fast as something fell. So, when you lose everything and you got to start from scratch, I had my share of pity parties, oh, poor me. But then it came the time where I kicked myself in the pants and was like, all right, pity party's over. It's not a loss if you learn something from it. So then I would start reflecting on what happened, what could I have done differently, what did I miss, and that kind of thing. And those were the lessons, or, however you would want to call it, from the experience that ended out, not the way I wanted, but at least it was something that I could move forward with in life and apply to whatever I was doing next.
Yeah.
And so there was those, those moments of pity parties, but they were followed by, reflection and then a kick in the pants of, time to get up and dust yourself off and get going again. Go ahead.
Do you think that the examples of the caring and sharing that of being raised in a family that provided that for you gave you the platform to who and what you are now?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. As a business owner, I always paid the people that worked with me very well. I'm not somebody that likes to, be doing well and then the people around me aren't. That's uncomfortable for me. I don't like to see that, and though I worked for everything that I had, it still was something that I didn't like to see. So I would, do what I could to either pay people, better. I was 18 years old running auto detailing business, and the people that worked with me were making $10 and $15 an hour, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was more than enough to go around. I still had more than enough. The business had operating capital, and we were making, money to survive and move on. And, it was just how I was, in that sense, because that's kind of how I was raised. And what I saw of my parents is, they worked and they worked their tails off, but they would still share and, help others when they could and do all those kind of things. So that's what I knew was the right thing to do. And, even times when I was making a lot of money, a lot of it was being spent on others, I really enjoy having, creating some type of experience for somebody that they won't forget later on. Oh, this is my favorite band and I really want to go see them, but I don't have the money. Well, I'll buy the tickets and then we'll go. Well, I don't have the money to go. No, I'll buy the tickets and we'll go. And then, things like that, I tried to do because I wanted to go and I don't want to go by myself. And I know you want to go, so let's go. Yeah. And it wasn't something that I was expecting, things in return or anything like that, because I give willingly, that's what I want to do and that's my choice. So, yeah. I'm not expecting for you to, and I'm not going to hold it over your head of, remember that time I bought you a ticket to go to this time? Well, now it's time to pay that back. Just not how I am.
Do you think,
so one of the,
do you think your cultural background plays a role in that? Because Portugal technically is Western, but in some examples, but it's still got more of the non-Western than the Western lifestyle. And do you think perhaps that plays into it? Because a lot of the Western world and the peoples have become corrupted with consumerism and collecting things and the programming. So do you think that perhaps your cultural background?
I think it did. I couldn't tell you exactly, what portion of it, but Portugal had their, time of being, top of the world long time ago.
Yeah.
Times of the explorers and stuff like that. So really since that time, Portugal hasn't been, any kind of, superpower or anything like that. They're a agricultural country and, there's not really people get by and they work on farms or, things along those lines, and they just live moderately, So
I've been to Portugal.
How my parents were.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
My parents are actually from the Azore Islands, which is off the coast.
Yeah.
Like Hawaii is to California, the Azores are to Portugal.
Yeah.
So they come from these little tiny islands that are, a quarter of the size of Hawaii, that you can do a lap around the island in an hour. So it's, they come from very, they live fine and well, but, there's not really opportunity there. So my dad left there at 15, came to the United States, and started working in the dairies. My mom, she left there at 7, went to Brazil, spent 8 years there, and then came to the United States when she was 15.
Wow.
So I was raised by people that have a different... Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So to have, parents that have that perspective, shows a lot, that maybe people that are born and raised here don't see as much,
Yes. Yeah, I understand. So, given your kind of self-driven, but like myself in many ways, did you rebel against authority and control? And has that been a common theme through your life, albeit whether it be peaceful or not so peaceful?
Yeah, definitely. I'm, and I'll go, that's something that I was taught boundaries at a very young age. So, at 1 year old, my dad thought it was a good time to start teaching me boundaries. And he drew a line in the carpet, and he says, that's your side, and you get to do whatever you want on that side, and this is my side. And I do whatever I want on this side. So, early on, I started learning life lessons, which, many people would look at that and it's like, oh, it's a funny story, but the lessons in the story is, really what matters. Yeah. So I respect people's boundaries, but I also expect my boundaries to not be infringed upon. And, that's when the nasty side comes out, when I feel like I'm being encroached upon, when I stay, quote unquote, in my lane, So I have some, pretty funny stories about that, kind of gave my parents a bit of a headache. But I was even though that I was, rebellious in a sense, I was also respectful and kept in mind that I didn't want my parents to look bad in that I was like raised in a barn or something like that. So even though I was doing whatever I was doing, I was still mindful about that. And when I was in junior high, I had a math teacher who from day one rubbed me the wrong way. We lived in a farming community, modest living, and this teacher I just always felt had her nose turned up at everybody, that she was better than everyone, and she would be, with her silk scarf and brooch and, sipping Perrier water, and I'm just looking at her like, it just rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like, that's not what this community's about, Yeah. So just from that, it just kind of, right or wrong on my opinion and being judgmental or anything, it rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah. But the teacher knew that by the end of a lesson that I would have retained 70 to 80% of the information. So then she would have me go around and help the other kids and, teach them. And it used to infuriate me because I'm like, why am I filling in for your inadequacies as a teacher? You know, you're the one who gets paid for this, so why am I doing your job when I'm the student? You know, if you were a better teacher, I wouldn't have to be doing this. And so I would just get really upset about that. And my mom would pick me up from school, and she would give me the how was school today, and I would just, you know, start venting about she made me do it again. And, you know, that went on for a little while. And then finally I was like, well, I'm upset about this. So you think that I'm so smart, teacher? Time for me to play dumb. So I started not turning in my homework. And I would do the homework, but when the teacher would come around to pick up the homework and be like, where's your homework? I would tell her I don't have it. And then that went on for a week, and then she called my mom to the office, and, you know, they're like, this is very uncharacteristic of them. You know, that's the first time my mom had ever been called to an office because of my behavior, quote unquote. And they're like, well, why aren't you doing your homework? And I would say, no, I did my homework. I just didn't turn it in. Well, no, you didn't. Why didn't you turn it in? I was like, it's all in my backpack. So they open up the backpack and they find the whole week's worth of homework there, done. And why didn't you turn it in? I didn't want to. And that was my reply. Nothing more, no, that was it. I didn't want to. So then the teacher, my mom had to start signing my homework every night. And even though that was happening, I still refused to turn in the homework. And I used to just get the biggest kick out of every time she came to my desk and said, where's your homework? And I say, I don't have it. And she knows it's in my backpack, and I know that she knows it's in my backpack, and I would still say, I don't have it. And then, so my mom was on speed dial by the teacher for a while. But I still pressed on. I didn't change. You know, I don't care how much trouble I got in at home or anything like that. Because the teacher would always give me credit for the homework because I did it. And so I'm like, well, this isn't having the effect I want. So time to ramp it up a notch. So then I started purposely doing bad on tests. And I would let my grade fall to like a C at the quarter time because I knew quarter grades are not permanent. And then I would bring the grade back up to an A by the time it was report card time. And so I went through that for the whole year, and I still finished that grade with straight A's. But I was going to make sure that I was going to be a thorn in that teacher's side as long as she was my teacher.
Yep.
But
if there's any of my teachers still listening, they'll will empathise with that story. Because, I was a thorn in all the sides, apart from the ones that levelled. If a teacher spoke down to me or anyone else in the class, for that matter, it wasn't just me, then me and that teacher would have a problem. If the teacher levelled and, you know, and stated the boundaries rather than ranting in your face, then me and that teacher got on. But the minute he started talking down to anyone in the class, he or she, then I had an objection. And that kind of went right through my school, from junior to high school. You know, you're the little kid and I'm the authority. No, yes, you're not the authority. You're there to teach the children.
Yeah, you're the teacher.
You know, and it's the same with the police force. They think they are the authority. No, you are there to observe peace and order, not the authority. And this has kind of been my battle through life, where I'm completely anti-authority, but be it from parents teachers, police, or governments, because all it's doing is stifling people's growth. Because, well, like the cover of the Pink Floyd album, The Wall, with the school and the Minter, we're not all the same. And this is what they're trying to do with the program, is make everyone the same. Not a high level, oh no, at a low level of thinking, so they can then push through the program. And I knew this when I was 10, that this wasn't right, and I'm glad you were similar. But most of us in the alternative media or community have all gone through the same thing, where school didn't resonate or completely, or some people just skipped through it and didn't feel it got value out of it, because you're not there to get value out of it, you're there to be indoctrinated. And those of us who have these empathy and extra abilities to intuitively know what they're doing, it just falls apart. And so then we become the troublemakers. You know, that person's always trouble. No, actually what that person is actually telling you is the right thing. It's you that's part of the problem, because you are playing along with the system, but you're not teaching. And this is the problem with teachers today. It's not a criticism of teachers, because they don't set the curriculum. But most teachers are not teachers, they're book readers.
Yeah.
The real teachers don't need a book. And that's the difference. They're reading a book out, or they're following a book that's been set out by people with an agenda. And so they may call themselves teachers, but they're not. Someone posted something today, Dead Poets Society, Robin Williams. Did he have a book? No. He spoke from experience, and spoke on a level where the kids were interested in learning. He didn't speak at them, he spoke to them. And this is
exactly.
This is the difference, where teachers think, I'm the authority, you're the little kid, you'll sit there, you'll follow orders, you'll do as I say because I'm the teacher. No, you're not a teacher. You are an indoctrination person. And this is, a lot of teachers have left the profession because they've now realised what they're doing, and says, I'm not teaching in that way, because it's not teaching. So I'm glad
some of the best teachers I ever had were the ones that they taught me to find my own answers.
Yeah.
They give me a clue and a direction and say, go find your answer that way. They wouldn't just give me the answer. And, inherently I don't like getting answers. I mean, there's just been many times where I get an answer and I'm like, oh, this is the truth. And then I find out for myself later on that it's not. So I'm very leery when somebody gives me a straight answer, like, here's your answer. I need to confirm it for myself to fully believe it.
Yeah.
And the other thing on learning, and it finally clicked to me. I heard Dave B say this a little while back, which is, I've been looking for, a teacher my whole life, and then I realized that my teacher is me. And that's kind of how I approached learning. I was learning how to teach myself, because that way I felt that it was, all on me. I'm definitely someone that I want to be in control of my destiny, good or bad. It's my decision, it's my actions that make that up. So, I approach learning in that same way, that I teach myself, like right now I'm trying to learn some computer programming stuff, which is absolutely foreign to me. I've never ever done anything like that, and I'm not very much a techie person. And I'm through YouTube and Google and any other free resources out there. I'm trying to learn some computer programming so that I can build something that I want because I don't have the money to pay somebody to do it.
Yeah. So in essence, what you're doing is what we mentioned on the Thursday shows is personal responsibility. And if we all applied that personal responsibility to ourselves and to others, and this is the way THI itself is going to roll out across the country, where we're all caring and sharing for each other, not just one small group, the whole country. And eventually, once it reaches a critical mass, the sheep or the followers will follow. This is a better way. This is us looking after ourselves, not waiting for government to fix things, because if we wait for government to fix things, we will wait for the rest of our days. They're not there to fix things for us as it stands.
Yeah. And I'd want to share a quick story with that real quick. When I was young, probably somewhere around the age of 8 years old, we lived in a higher concentration of Portuguese in this community. And my parents were a part of this little, association in our area. And my parents and two other couples decided that they wanted to put on a Thanksgiving dinner for the needy. And so there was 6 people. All of them, had modest lives. They weren't rich by any means, but they pooled the extra they had together. And then they reached out and got support from other people that donated their time, or maybe they donated some food also. And they fed 1,500 people. And it was 6 people that put that together. And, it's just an example to show it only takes a few people to make exponential change.
Yeah.
And, the issues of the common people are going to be solved by the common people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where are we next? You've mentioned you've got concerns about certain themes that are playing out. One of them in particular is the commercialization of spirituality and the sacred. Can you tell us your perspective on what you see that as being the problem?
Yeah, it's something that does concern me, because it's the time right now where it's like we're trying to break out of the materialistic mindset and into one of more of a spiritual base of caring for the all. And it's just because of the timing. I see, like myself, it's taken me a while to kind of wrap my head around this, because, there's many things that I'd like to do that are quote unquote spiritually based, but I just couldn't get over the whole aspect of charging people money for something like that that's like help, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it's, I've kind of come to my own conclusion that like the fastest way to corrupt your spirituality is to mix money with it. And, like people who, and apologize in advance if, this rubs people the wrong way, but it's my perspective. There's someone I know who's, kind of I don't want to say guru, but he's somebody that wants to show people the way and those kind of things like that. He has somebody who's going to pay him over $50,000 for 1 year to pray around him and to be his guide and those kind of things. And it just boggles my mind that, one, you would even accept that amount of money for something like that, and two, that somebody thinks that you buy spirituality. like spirituality comes in a box. And, that's something that is of concern to me because it's something that has nothing to do with, material things and money or anything like that. It's, to me, spirituality is a relationship of all things made of spirit or source, so why do you charge when it's about building a relationship? Why do you want to pay for something that you can get for free? It's building a relationship. And so those, that's one thing that really bothers me in that sense, because I feel that, their intentions are in the right place. But, what happens if somebody comes to you and they don't have money? Do you not help them?
Yeah.
Those are that's a question I have to ask, And then, when the commercialization of the sacred, I would kind of put, crystals in there and, plant medicines like ayahuasca and cannabis and stuff like that. And you just see all these marketing advertisements for those kind of things when, those things shouldn't be marketed in that kind of way. Like crystals, I work with crystals. I don't use crystals. I work with crystals, and that's, a difference in the perception. It's a crystal to me is a being like anything else. So it's a relationship or an interaction where you're working together towards a common goal, or you asking them for assistance on something that you're trying to do. So, all these trinkets and all these stuff that is being peddled all over the place, and it's in my opinion and in my experiences, they're very much a alive being, like something that walks on legs. So
it's got an
treating
energy
them like
connection.
a piece of jewelry. Yeah, and just treating them like they're a piece of jewelry, and now you're, I'm spiritual because I have crystals or something like that is just, I just feel like you're not getting it. It's not that way. And then even, plant medicines, one of the next things we'll talk about is my relationship with cannabis, which has been long, but it's very much a relationship because I respect the plant for what it is. And I didn't always in the beginning, but my perspective evolved to understanding, that there's a spirit and essence to that plant that, I felt was very helpful to me. And it was, I feel like can be helpful to others used in a correct way. I'm very against the, recreational cannabis and, those kind of things, because it's not a recreational thing. It is a plant medicine.
Yeah.
And, there's an agenda behind that also.
Absolutely.
That has to do with your, endocrine system, and, that stimulates your thyroid, and, that's how it opens you up, like Willow said, to, attachments and things like that. And if you're not aware of those things going in, then you could have unintended consequences and fall victim to their plan.
Yeah. I remember on a Cosmic Voice show, cannabis came up. I've never touched any drugs. To me, I just don't understand it. You can get highs in life without needing them. But, it's each to their own. I smoke cigars, and people will say, I don't know why you do that. So, it's give and take. But I remember mentioning about it because suddenly, this was probably about 2.5 years ago maybe, and it caused a major storm, and all the cannabis people on the page started ranting because I recognise, because I always tend to see the bigger picture, where it's come from. Who runs it? Well, what was it once a conspiracy that the CIA ran the drugs is now no longer a conspiracy. It's a fact, and it's out in the mainstream. Another example that's kind of carried over from Thursday. And so I turn around and says, you have to realise, every time you go and buy cannabis, you're funding the CIA to run black projects against us. And that didn't go down too well. Because, not because I didn't say something that wasn't true, it's because then people were projecting at me because I was the messenger, because they didn't like what I had to say, even though it was correct. And this is why they're now wielding it out across the country and legalising it. They're not interested in people's health. They never have been interested in people's health. They want to make you sick so you can go to the pharma company and buy that other drugs. And it's another way of them making more money, which then goes into the black projects, which then goes into all kinds of other schemes that works against the people. Now, if you smoke cannabis and you grow your own, fine, because then you're not contributing. But if you're not, then that money, somewhere along the line, in fact, along many lines, is running straight back to Langley and the programs. And this is where people have to look at things from a different perspective of, well, I like cannabis, so I'm going to take it whether you tell me this or you tell me that. But then you can't go into the freedom movements when they're trying to shut all these black budget programs down and still provide them with the funds by buying cannabis. And this is where we have to start thinking. If people grow their own, fine. I've got no problem if people want to smoke cannabis. Just don't do it around me. I don't like it. But you have to start thinking on a bigger scale rather than just your own little bubble. And this is why they're rolling it out. They've run out of funds. They can't access the trust account no more. And so they know if they keep pushing the drugs, the people will keep buying it and they'll legalise it and they'll buy some more. And we have to be careful. So careful of all
definitely.
These programs. So your relationship with cannabis, before we go into a music break, where do you wish to go with that?
Well, through high school, I didn't smoke and I didn't drink. I played hockey, and Friday nights when people were going to parties and stuff like that, myself and friends were at the hockey rink playing till 10 o'clock at night. So I didn't really do the party life because it just was something, I had tried alcohol and it just doesn't fit well with me. And I had never tried really anything else other than that until I was out of high school. And then the first time I smoked cannabis, it was just very interesting to me that I felt like it expanded my perspective of looking at things, and that I could look at things from multiple points of view and really kind of get a full perspective around things, because it almost hit like the pause button on any preconceptions I had about whatever topic. So it was very interesting to me, and in many ways helped me expand my perspective and having an open mind and looking at things from multiple directions, because it just had that effect on me. Now I'm someone that has it affects me kind of differently. You know, you have the classic, you know, stoner, as they call it, quote unquote, where you smoke and then you sit on the couch and you just zone out watching TV and you just eat a bunch of junk food and that kind of stuff. That wasn't the effect it had on me. It actually gave me like an energy boost where I wanted to get up and do something. So my friends and I would smoke. They would go into doing whatever they were doing, and then I would go into the garage and start tinkering on something or building on something. So it just affected me differently than a lot of people. And it also was kind of, sometimes you get in those, you know, spaces where you're being, you know, whether you're being, you know, it's a pity party or whatever the case is. And for whatever reason, whenever I would smoke in those situations, it was like it hit the pause button. And I was able to have a break from that to then, like, regroup mentally. Because I knew there's no escaping your problems. I knew that. So it was never an escapist kind of thing for me. It was like, I need a break for a second so I could regroup. And then once it wears off, then, you know, I changed my stride. So I can see how it was effective in, you know, me programming myself or breaking a certain program that I was in, quote unquote. But if you don't take that time to reprogram yourself, something's going to reprogram yourself for you. So I was well aware of that as well.
So you didn't...
And one of the go ahead.
Sorry to interject, because something just come to me now, and perhaps we'll discuss it again after the music. So basically, you went, like many people are, using it as a crutch to escape reality. It was just a case.
It was a tool for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was in construction and I like having tools, you know, because in a time and a place, it can help you, you know. And, you know, I'll admit that during my younger years, I was excessive in probably the use, you know. Now, currently, you know, here and there, I might use it, but it's in a completely different format. But it was definitely, I felt it as a tool, more than it was an escape, you know.
Yeah. Good. Right, we'll carry on this subject after the music break, but we're going to play a second piece of music that you've selected. Is this one of your favourites, or does this have a meaning, the Allman Brothers Soulshine?
Little disclosure, I like watching the TV show The Voice, and I saw somebody sing that song, and it was the first time I ever heard it recently, and I was like, that's a really cool song and seems very appropriate for this time. So, yeah, I would say yes.
Right, okay, here is the Allman Brothers Band and Soulshine. We'll be back shortly. Hi all, and welcome back to the second portion of this afternoon show, An Evening with Thomas, with guest Eric Lewis, and we've been hearing about his life story and his journey to date, and we're going to go into a bit more. We were speaking about cannabis, and you said something that made me kind of think, because of how it reacted, and just because I don't believe in people smoking it doesn't mean to say that that has to be the right way. But I'm intrigued with what you said, that it doesn't affect. And the question that came up is that because you have advanced on your evolutionary plane higher than maybe some of the others who were just doing it to get stoned because they're in the lower astral?
I mean, and there's now where my senses have been, more intense lately. I mean, I still, experience that. The thing that I would say, but, I know full well that it's a possibility that might happen, so I'm aware of that and, can usually sense when something like that is happening now. But back then, I would say I don't know if I really wouldn't be able to tell you how far up the ladder I am. I'm just taking one step in front of the other.
Well, even
it was
listening,
just from
listening to you had your own path from an early age. I'm listening to the story and creating a picture in my own mind. You had a path. You weren't prepared for people to knock you off that path. You learned what you wanted to learn, not what they told you to follow. And so those type of people have a defined path. And so using cannabis with that background just maybe it might trigger different things than the people who don't have a path, who are just told to keep going down that road. It doesn't matter whether we tell you a pack of lies or not, just carry on with your life and have some cannabis and get stoned and forget that we've told you the whole heap of lies and that your life is utter crap, No,
the thing is from day one, that first experience, it was just something that was like, I remember one of the first few times that I smoked, I just remember just looking, on how vivid all the colors were around me. And I remember saying to myself, I feel like I have HD vision. It enhanced many things for me. If I had an idea of something or there was a problem and I couldn't find the solution in a sober mind, then I would try to think about that after smoking cannabis through a different perspective to see if there was a solution that I could come to. So it was just that I viewed it in that way and always used it in that way. I mean, but it did have its, there is a certain kind of numbing aspect to it. And, being a business owner, you generally work harder than, a 40-hour work week. And, I was somebody that really pushed it hard, from 18 until about 31 or so. I was working 6 or 7 days a week, 10 to 14-hour days, consistently. All-nighters a few times a week, and I was just really pushing it hard. And which meant I was neglecting myself and my body and really pushing it, to the limit. But it was just, I had the drive and mentally I was still there. And I was like, yeah, I know you're tired, but we got things to do, so let's get to it. And that, kind of, it showed itself in 2013 when, my life was in mass upheaval at that time. But, I would work, 10 hours, 12 hours or something like that, and I still had more stuff I needed to do, so I'd go outside and have a smoke, and then it's kind of like, okay, I'm re-energized again, and get in there and get back at it. So I see both sides of it, and I make no jones about it. I don't praise this thing as the, whatever. I don't even know what to call it.
The be-all and end-all. Exactly. It's not the be-all and end-all.
No, it's just, I think, I see it for what it is, good or bad.
I think, from my perspective, like I said, I've never even tried it once. So it's just maybe I'm kind of different than some other people, whereas some of those experiences I can seek in other ways. Some of the things that you mentioned before about it's like seeing life in HD during the dream time or the vision time, which is not necessarily being totally asleep. It's being awake and aware of your surroundings, and you can transport yourself into another place. That those things can be done without the need for cannabis or any other mushrooms or psychedelic drugs. And this is where... Yeah,
I tried mushrooms one time, and I felt too detached from reality that I was like, this is way too far out there. I don't want to go back there again.
You know, so what I'm trying to get over is that people can experience those things without the need to take cannabis, because it's
or
just
something external.
Yeah. In essence, those experiences are already in you. And this is again of how we play the external game. And then a lot of people, because we haven't been educated on it, there's a dark side to it. People can criticize me all they like, but the reality is there is a dark side to it that we're not aware of. You know, the lady last week about Willow with the ayahuasca. If you are not aware of the possibilities of invading entities through that channel that you've just opened, then you're in trouble, and this then takes over and possesses your vessel, and you are no longer in control. And then you think you have to have another one, and it's going to be better the next time, or the next time, and the next time. But you're already taken over, and that's where society lacks the knowledge and the education to support that. And you know, the wheeling out all this, let's legalise it and all that, you know, because nobody should be going to jail for it unless they're committing crimes. You know, they're stealing to buy it, then that's another thing, or that's separate. But there has to come with the education of it and the warnings, and get people into a certain understanding and knowledge base, so that they then know the risks of what they're taking. And this has been chronically overlooked, in my opinion.
It definitely has. I mean, Southern California, or California in general, is different than many parts of the rest of the country, because there was a local, you know, many of the people that grew cannabis in the area grew it locally, you know. It wasn't, you know, being provided by, at least, you know, in what I was familiar with, you know what I mean? It wasn't like coming from across the border kind of thing. Like, generally, I knew the person it was coming from. Yeah. So and I knew them.
Yeah. You didn't have the gangster element.
No, not at all. I mean, many of the people that grew cannabis referred to themselves as the resistance, which is funny to me. I mean, but it was just like, you know, it was their form of like rebellion against the system and still like making do, like, you know. Yeah. And not that I agree or whatever the case was. It was just interesting that most of those people, at least in my area in California, were, you know, they were definitely, I would say, quote unquote, awake to the 3D hypocrisies that were going on. Yeah. And not that they were using that money for positive things, you know, but they were not doing negative things with it. They were just fulfilling ego pursuits of materialism. Yeah. But, you know, a couple quick little points just in closing up on that is I would go to, you know, a local reggae club, And, you know, over there it's, you know, part of their culture kind of thing. So it's acceptable. Yeah. And, you know, you go into the balcony and you roll up a joint and then you share it amongst people. And just the way that you see complete strangers for different walks of life share a moment together in laughter and, you know, communion, you know, over a plant was something that really stood out to me. And the other thing is that, sadly, in Southern California, one of the few places where you'll go where a stranger will say hi to you in passing is in front of a cannabis dispensary, which is sad.
Yes. So we should create life. Well, this is kind of, we're on a long journey of creating a new future where people say hi without using drugs. People can be nice to each other without being out of control as such. And I think overall we all look forward to that future. You know, my stances on cannabis is the same as Chloe. Chloe says it shouldn't be smoked, it should be chewed. You know, and then of course you've got the oils, and I would never deny that it has benefits, for medicinal benefits, and that should never have been denied to the people. But again, like I said, they're not interested in our health, because if they were, we would have had that a long time ago. And that's
well, I think that
part of the
cannabis
problem
itself was you know, it being, because you have hemp, which is like non-psychoactive cannabis, and then you have cannabis, which has the part that gets you high. So it became outlawed because of hemp, and that kind of fell under that outlaw. But in my opinion, they probably wanted you to smoke it and do that kind of thing for the other benefits they have. They just didn't want hemp to get, you know, it was bad for business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, hemp can produce oil. You can make buildings, and then of course they create the construction companies and the oil companies, and so that's going to damage their business, and so they shut it down. And so that's the way it works. That's the way the capitalists work. So then when they suddenly decide they're going to give you it and legalize it, then from my perspective, I want people to look at it from, well, what's their agenda? Because why have they denied it for so long and then suddenly decided, oh, you can have it? Because you always have to be aware, more times than not, if not in all cases, it's an agenda. It's like the black movement. It's all an agenda. You know, we're all slaves, black and white and brown. You know, that's the reality. But then they'll pump that one was more of a slave than the other, when in reality it wasn't. There was a lot of white slaves that's never been broadcast into history that were used by the blacks. Again, it's about steering the story. And even with the awfulness of the black slavery, the reality is it was the black people that rounded their own people up and sold them to the white shipping owners. And so there's a responsibility all the way down the line. But they'll use these agendas, and then they'll come out, you know, the latest one now is the transgender. They're not interested in the transgender people. They're interested in divide and conquer and splitting opinion. Like, they're not interested in females. You know, when we had the women's rights movement, they only interested in it when it has an agenda behind it. And so when these things come forward, and hopefully all this nonsense is going to end within the next 5 to 10 years anyway, or sooner, people look at it from an overview and not just, oh, it's great that cannabis has been legalized, oh, it's great they're looking after the transgenders, because they're not. It's all part
well,
of
it was very telling
agenda.
that, you know, one of the first states where cannabis was legalized is Colorado. So if you have any idea of what happens in Colorado, then you can kind of see the, you know, truth behind the plan.
Absolutely. Right, we're going to go on to your next phase now. You have looked at things and you see a meme and a story with America and how it could be a cosmic example for peace. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. And this is, you know, my perspective and something I put together myself. Because I speak Portuguese and Spanish, Latin languages are familiar to me and easier for me to dissect and, you know, that kind of thing. So, I mean, America, if you split it up, AME is, or amor, is love. And rica is rich. So essentially in, you know, Spanish, depending on how you place the words forward or backwards, it's either love rich or rich love. So in my opinion, when America was named America, it was an imprint of the meme of consumerism, which we consume the most out of anybody on the planet. And, you know, also the meme of the love of riches or love for the rich and all the celebrities and idols that people worship. And that's just, you know, my perspective in looking at it. And why I say a example is that our planet's story, to me, has a lot of similarity to what transpired in America. You know, you have the native people that was here, and then an outside force comes in to take control and establish themselves and, you know, all that kind of thing, which happened on our planet. And the thing about America is it's one of the few countries that, you know, aside from the native people, you know, most people are immigrants here, or most people migrated here at some point in time. So it's a melting pot from people from all around the world coexisting in one country, which to me is kind of like and I don't know why I had this feeling, but I always felt Earth was like, you know, kind of a quarantine area of like, hey, if these guys can figure it out and, you know, be peaceful, then there could be peace on a galactic level kind of thing. Just for whatever reason, I had that kind of feeling about this planet. And, you know, America is somebody that, or a country that, you know, has a lot of quote unquote power or control kind of thing. At least they impose it around the world, but that could be used in a positive way. You know, you're already out there and quote unquote known, but where I see that the cosmic example comes in is, you know, to reverse the meme that was set up, you know, beforehand, and not be a country that loves riches or loves the rich, but a country that's rich in love for each other and for everybody. And, you know, with everybody, with so many people from different countries all here coexisting, you know, and there isn't very many problems, but there's also not very much interaction outside of people's cultural groups. You know, my neighborhood is one person to my left is from Pakistan, person on my right is from Korea, person across the street from China. You know, another one is, you know, there's people from all around the world just in the houses around me. And there's never any problem. We wave to each other in passing. I mean, I don't really know my neighbors personally, I'm just somebody who likes to kind of keep to myself in many ways, but it would be a good thing for me to do, and I know that, and just haven't done it. But that's just, kind of my perspective on how I see that.
In essence, we are part of a grander experiment on the macro. And perhaps what you're sensing or thinking is America is the micro version of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of is the case. And one of the things that used to bother me on Cosmic Voice was this term illegal aliens. And no country has more different countries or people from different countries than America itself. We're American and we don't want foreigners. And I'm thinking, we're all foreigners. I'm from Britain.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that originated from the Irish, which is what people call the rednecks. They're all the Irish descendants. And then there's a lot of the Asians that are on the West Coast. And so, what is American? Is it, how far do you go back? And there's a lot of people to do with the Native American, which has become synonymous with America, but it's not. There was people here before them. And so we have to be careful about where we're apportioning land to certain groups or certain people, when we should be realizing the planet belongs to all of us. You can't be. How can you be a legal alien on your own planet? And people have to stop using those terms. Illegal alien, it's awful. And I don't care whether those people are from Syria, I don't care whether they're Muslim or whatever. You can't be an illegal alien on your own planet, because basically you're propping up the system where they're separating us and divide and conquer. Well, we're American and we've got this and they're that, and so they can't come here. Well, why can't they? Then you've got, of course, the radicals, so-called radicals, who people in this country forget were all created by an entity out of Virginia.
Oops.
And once we as Americans, in inverted commas, realise that the enemy is within, yes, there are other portions of the world, City of London, Rome, and certain other portions as well, Israel. But a lot of the world's ills all stem from the northeast of this country. Not Russia, not China, not Muslims, but this country. And it's too easy to blame others. And at the end of the day, all it's doing is playing into the system. Because there is no Americans. We're people. Countries.
Yeah, I thought one of the interesting things that you had said is, imagine if you meet an ET, what are you going to tell them? You're an American? Like, that just gives a level of perspective. Like, I just thought that was funny when you had said that.
Yeah, it's all divide and conquer. And so we're talking about freedom on one hand and saying we don't want illegal aliens on another. I mean, the two don't mix. But this is part of the programming, that somebody else, particularly in this country, somebody else from roughly 6,000 to 8,000 miles away is coming to get them. But America's never been bombed. Mainland, anyway. Hawaii has. But Hawaii was taken over. They were living peaceably, taken over by military for a base to launch at Asia. The island of Guam. All for military purposes, and people's whole lifestyles and cultures and country of origin has been decimated because of the military-industrial complex. And yes, America gets the blame for it, but the blame doesn't start at America. That power structure comes from the City of London and the Crown and onto the Vatican. And for those of you who know this show, also from further afield, and I mean further afield from this planet also, we have to stop this conflict in the words that we're putting out, that we want to be peaceful and we want freedom for all, but we don't want this people from this country coming here, and we don't want people from that country coming here because they're different. Yet we're all different. Even each American's different from the next person. So do we throw them out as well? Where does it stop? And we have to start thinking on a different level. The problem is not the people. The problem has been the system. And once the people start realising that and coalescing like we are now, thankfully the numbers are increasing rapidly. More and more people are stepping out of the lies and distortion that they've been told all their life and stepping into a more truthful path. But if you leave people like your street, you leave people to do things themselves. It could be a Muslim living next door to you. Either side. Are we saying there's no good Muslims because the news tells us? It's rubbish. But a lot of the issues in this country is to do with the policy that comes from the northeast of America. They're not representative of we the people. Never were, and we have to remind them of that, and we will be shortly as well. So,
agreed.
You've kind of noticed that everyday things that separate us as humans from our planet and nature. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Some of this information, a large portion of it came from Dan Winter. You could look him up, and quite brilliant guy. But he pointed out some things that finally, things clicked to me where I'm always observing and listening and trying to take in what's around in my environment, because I find many simple truths by just being aware and having your eyes open. So when I came across, his information, there was a lot of things that, made sense. I have, a background in construction, so I understand, electricity / energy. So that kind of helped also in putting those pieces together. But it's, there's everyday things that we, don't realize that it's separating ourselves from our planet. Our rubber-soled shoes. Rubber doesn't conduct energy. So the shoes we wear every day is inherently blocking our connection through our feet to the planet. Yeah. And, that's such a simple thing, but such a, huge cost or,
dynamic, yeah.
It's a big problem, yeah. The other thing is, everywhere's concrete and asphalt, and all the concrete has rebar in it, and metal, disperses energy, and concrete doesn't have any kind of piezoelectric capacity of passing energy through it. So not only do we wear rubber-soled shoes, but we also spend our time, or some people have the luxury of not being in a city and still living in nature or fairly close to it. I don't know if that's a luxury. It would be a luxury for me. But it's those, kind of things that we don't realize is separating ourselves from connecting with our planet. Do we take the time to take off our shoes and go and sit in the grass and, and do that to rebuild that connection? The other thing is, popular topic, nowadays is synthetics, synthetic fabrics, nylon, and, polyester and those kind of things. When you put inorganic materials or synthetic materials on something that's organic, it siphons off its energy. Exactly. So, if you think about it in the current terms, and the energetic construct that we all deal with, it's synthetic and it feeds off of the organic living. So, putting those kind of pieces together, I started seeing that kind of stuff. And, the shows helped a lot, fill in a lot of blanks I had about things I saw and I couldn't quite put my finger on, like why or what was the cause or what's the agenda behind it. And so the shows helped fill in a lot of those blanks. I'll use an example of like the pyramids. They were built, but they're an organic technology, and how long has the pyramid lasted versus, let's say, a bridge or something like that. That, does take somebody to build it, just like a pyramid did, but a bridge will rot out and fall apart a lot sooner than that pyramid. And a bridge, as long as somebody's willing to put their energy into it to maintain it, is how it continues on. And that's just like a rough example kind of thing. But it's, and again, I'm a fan of tools. Like, doing construction with no tools is no fun. So, I have that respect for technology. But, there's organic technology, which is all around us that, has far more capabilities and is a natural existence versus something that is, man-made and put together kind of thing.
Well, you mentioned about the synthetic clothing. Of course, we used to have hemp and cotton. Again, cotton's organic, so is hemp. It's a plant and it's made into something. But once this plastic synthetic revolution kicked in, again, it's seen as something of convenience to use, but it always has a different agenda. And slowly but surely, with synthetics and technology and concrete, it's all supporting what you have noticed is it's taken us away from the ground and to the planet of Mother Earth. Even
I agree 100%.
Even the GMO is another part of that agenda, because it's not based in anything. It's got GMO. The premise of it, you might as well eat a piece of paper. It has the same nutritional value. It's stripped of the nutrients. It's stripped of the vitamins. So they're giving you an illusion of food. It's not real food, because it's got no nutrition in it. It's got no vitamins in it. It's got none of the metals that we need. It's just inorganic. And this is where we have to be more like Eric and observant of our surroundings and what's going on. was basically what they're pushing us to is everything back to inorganic when we're heading rapidly towards the organic. It's a pushback. And this is why the transhumanism, again, it's not real life. It's a computer program. The robots, again, it's not real life. It's not bio. And we have to be very careful going forward, and this is why I keep banging on every show about the technology. We failed with it in the past. Do I think there was outside interference? Absolutely. But still didn't mean we had to follow the path that was set out for us. We have to start thinking for ourselves. Do what Erickson, analyse things. Think and act different. That's what we started THI with, the very first show. This is going to be about getting people to think and act in a different way. Otherwise we're just following the same system. And the system is not designed for we the people. It's designed for a select few of psychopaths who think they can attain immortality via the transhumanism program. That's what they're doing. So eventually they will keep pushing robots, and if we keep buying the type of technology that supports it, we're giving our consent to it. Implied consent. It was mentioned this on Tuesday. You implied consent of handing over your soul, life force, energy. And this is where the knowledge base has to be increased to right round the planet to get people to see properly. Not just use your eyes, you have to see. You have to understand it. Because too often we've gone down what is convenient. Convenience is also, like consumerism, damaging people. So this plays into the next section for you, about your path of self-realization. It kind of rolls from one to the other. How did that all start for you?
Well, it started for me in 2013 when I didn't jump back into the loop. And, there was a lot of things that healing-wise, I hadn't attended to through the years. My dad passed away when I was 12, and, that was a traumatic experience. And the interesting thing about that is that when I was 7 years old, I was sitting, in a church with him because I had to go for my first communion. And I was sitting in the church with them, and my parents weren't religious people, quote unquote. My mom said that, church starts in the house. So, we did it. We went to church because I had to, or else I couldn't, go through first communion or those kind of things. Yeah. But I was sitting in a church with my dad, and I guess you could say there was a premonition, and I just felt extremely sad, and I just had a knowingness that he was going to pass away sooner than later. And, I started crying, and, I never told anybody about it, but I knew that, the days I had with him was numbered. So I just, went about trying to make the best out of whatever time I had. And then, so he passed away when I was 12. And so it was my mom and I and my grandmother. And I'll say that the only person in my family that was strong enough to contain what was me and not, steamroll things was her. which is funny because she's, 5 foot and some change, 100 and few pounds, she's little, but she's tough as nails. And so she was able to play, some of the fatherly role, in kind of anchoring things down and, holding the fort down. And then my grandmother filled in, as the motherly more duties because, my mom was still a business owner and she still had to go out and work and run her business and things like that. So I was fortunate that my grandmother was there and she was still there to raise me during, those times. So that was an issue that I hadn't fully healed from. I felt some kind of abandonment issues because the way my mom coped with the loss of her husband was to bury herself in work and just keep herself busy. And, I'd remember going out to her office. It's, 10:30 at night and I'm, after you coming in yet? And, she was like, well, I'll be there in a little while. I'm still working. And I remember that it, upset me, but I didn't realize that that was her method of coping with the loss herself. So, there was some anger issues and things like that manifested into, more rebellious things, which was already pumping through my veins. And just, different traumas that you experience along the way through life. And, I was kind of going for it from, day one of being an adult. So, because even though I spent a time of reflection, there wasn't really the time of healing and letting it go. It was just I mentally understood it. I gleaned whatever I could from the situation, but I never attended to the emotional aspect of it. So fast forward to 2013 when it's I'm having the, catastrophic fall, the biggest one I had ever had, where, I'm losing my house and everything else, but I was also having, a spiritual upheaval at the same time. And also, it was one of those things that I knew something was wrong, and it was just many of those things all came to a head at that time. And so I was kind of forced to deal with it all at that time. That was my quote-unquote starting to wake up, dealing with, physical reality and then the emotional aspect of, healing things from the past that, things that I had done to others and things that others had done to me. And, going through that part along with the physical aspect of it, of my, reality is falling apart completely. So it was a pretty intense time. And so that's when, I didn't have a job. I had a little bit of money that I could, live off of for the time being. My house was being foreclosed on, so I wasn't paying the mortgage anymore. And so that kind of relieved some pressure as far as bills-wise. And my mom had moved in with me because she was going through financial problems as well. And so that was that time, 2013. And one thing that I did before is whenever something ended, I was almost immediately getting back into something else. And I never really gave that time to really evaluate on a deep level. So 2013 comes around, and then all this is happening, and I also made the decision that I'm going to stop smoking cannabis at this time too, which had been a tool for me throughout the past. So I no longer wanted to use that tool to figure this out, because I had been using that tool and hadn't figured it out in the past. So maybe it's time to put that down for a while and figure things out and go through whatever experiences, I need to without that. So that's where everything started for me. And then when I realized that, everything I knew was pretty much a lie, I had to wipe the slate clean and relearn everything, myself. And one of the things that would help me along the way was, if I'm thinking about myself, okay, I need to figure things out for myself, I need a starting point. So the natural starting point is, for me, the beginning. So it's like, I was born on this date, my name is this, and, I started with astrology and numerology to basically start understanding why I was the way I was. So something, just for whatever reason, I felt that would at least give me a starting point. And the thing that at the very beginning that really caught my attention was, I'm a Pisces, and it said, basically Pisces understands the world around them, but then doesn't understand themselves. And I was like, well, that's actually really accurate. But I don't want to be the classic Pisces, and I need to understand myself. So then that's when I started reading. And if you read, your natal birth chart, there's a lot of information that contradicts itself.
Yeah.
And, that's where it's like, that's duality. Oh, you're sweet and kind, but you can be an a-hole. So it's like, well, both are true. So
yeah.
I get it, But I've always been able to have
down
an
to your own
objective
choice.
look at myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It all comes down to your own choice. But I've always been objective with myself. And as much as I'm experiencing life, I'm also observing myself and my actions. I don't need somebody to tell me I did wrong, because I know I did wrong.
Yeah.
And, that's just something I was always accustomed to doing. So, astrology and numerology and stuff like that. And it's, some out there kind of thing, quote unquote. But it gave me a basis of where to start and understand why I was one way sometimes and another way another time. And so that helped on, getting things started for me.
Yeah.
And then, you want to start understanding about energies and chakras and, that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm learning a lot about myself and myself energetically. Well, how do I interact energetically with the world around me? And then I took a course in feng shui and understood how the energies around me, that flow of energies and, how I interact with them and that kind of thing. So it was kind of a building block in that regard. And even, in feng shui, like my trigram is called Gen, or however somebody would want to, Gen, they would want to pronounce that. But it's, the symbol for it is the mountain. And it's very much, I agree with it. I feel like I have my feet, planted on solid ground and my head in the clouds, So it's like I found a lot of truth in those, things that I was looking at, because I could take an honest look at myself and apply those things and understand that in most cases, both are correct, the good and bad. But it also helped me start figuring out what's in my nature and what's natural to me. And, one of the, like right in the beginning of, the chart, rebellious nature is like almost out the gate, like it was there. And I was like, okay, I can associate with that. And then, like, one of the next things is I have Jupiter in its home zodiac of Sagittarius, and, you know, Jupiter kind of a teacher. I can see that. I like, you know, teaching people to, you know, learn for themselves and, you know, progress. I could see that. And then, you know, there's also the complicated aspects that can be good or bad, and, you know, there's a fine line between them. I have Mars in its home house, and, you know, Mars, you know, quote unquote, Aries and war and stuff like that. So that nature is also there, but it's something that I'm not afraid of it, because there may be a point in time where I have no other choice where I have to go there.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's part of the potential of the shadow, that though it's, you know, kind of frightening to think of yourself being able to do that, it's not that I would take pride in doing anything like that and hope I never have to or anything like that. But if it comes down to no other choice and it's me or something else, I'm not taking it laying down. So it just gave me perspective in my understanding of how I was, because I always felt like I was a complicated individual trying to exist simply and, you know, figure that whole kind of thing out. Because, like, the Pisces is one fish going up and one fish going down, and they're held together by a band. So it's, you know, my potential for polarity is pretty extreme, and trying to maintain balance is a struggle, because almost inherently I seek the full expression of a situation. You know, I want to see the good and I want to see the bad, just because more often than not, you know, the painful and negative aspects of things teach me the most.
Yep.
So it's, you know, it was really helpful as a starting point for me.
Good. That brings us up to your next piece of music. My Name is Human. Any reasons behind that?
Yeah, I mean, many people, like, they associate with labels and identifiers and things like that, you know. Like, I could say I'm an entrepreneur and this and that and all those kind of things, but I choose not any of those labels to describe myself. Yeah. You know, at this current place in time, I'm a human being and I'm a creator being, and those are the only labels I need.
Right, we're going to play that song, but before, I'm going to send a warning to the people or the group who thinks it's fun to send electronic signals down the show. Next time you do that, I will blow your ears and computers right out the water. Final warning. Right, we're going to go into the next song. Hi all, and welcome back to the final portion of tonight's show. We've been listening to Eric Lewis, and it's a fascinating story of his and his journey through life, and we're going to go into it a bit more. But I wasn't joking about that warning. One more signal and that's your computer's gone. Right, apologies for that, but some people think they can play games. Those people will learn the hard way. Right, where are we next? Can you tell us some of your experiences about doing your shadow work?
Yeah, there's some of the, stuff I spoke of before about, traumas that had gone, unattended to, that either things that I had done or things that had been done to me. I would say that everything I feel happens for a reason. Cause and effect was very much something I understood early on. So it was easy for me to not have as much trauma around certain programs, I guess you could say, like the victim program and stuff like that, because I knew that I had allowed it. So it didn't take away from, the trauma that had happened, but it lessened it because I didn't have the why is this happening to me, phase of it. If anybody, I'm most honest with myself, that's one thing I try to do is, be honest with myself as much as possible, good or bad. And so that's helped in, shadow work, because I can look at myself objectively as if I wasn't looking at myself. Yeah. Good or bad, I call it like I see it. So that kind of helped in doing shadow work. The part that was hard for me is the potential of your shadow.
Yep.
That was the hard one for me to fully make peace with. Because, many times I would walk away from fights. And I did that not because I was scared of the person, but because I was scared of what I might do to them in harming them. So I would take the blow to my ego, and people call me a chicken or whatever the case is, this or that. But the few times that I saw red, I was scared to see what came next. Yeah. So I just avoided it. And that was probably the hardest thing for me to, come to terms with, because it's like, am I some monster or something like that? And, just to understand that, everybody has a shadow, and all it is a potential, and it's your choice whether it comes out or not.
Yep, this is plays into a lot of us in many ways. Chloe often gets frustrated with me. You should get angry at this situation or that situation. So I said, well, let's play the metronome game again. I said, that's what they want you outside of the 45-55, which is the best range. So you're in the centre, you're swinging from anger and backwards and forwards. It's a lot difficult to bring that swinging metronome back to the middle. But if you're operating 45-55 and you treat situations that please you and disappoint you in a similar manner, then you're not having to correct that to bring that swinging arm back into the centre. And I too have a fear of my own anger. I've seen what it can do, and that's why I give warnings. I'd rather not use it, because there's always ways around it. But if people continue to overstep boundaries, then it has to come out at some point. And it's like everything else in life, it's a balance. And retaining that calm, no matter what's going on around you, the ones that stay calm are the ones that are balanced. The ones that are swinging from heightened excitement down to depression. You're waiting for your clock from swing one way or the other. And this is important going forward, is that we've heard a lot of things that we don't particularly like. The Illuminati show in particular was kind of painful for many people to listen to, which is why I cancelled the second show for that week. we're going to hear a lot of things that are going to be totally confirmed. And how are you going to react to them? Well, if you're going to keep reacting to every piece of information of truth in anger, which path are you going to send yourself down? Are you going to then go into the victim mode? That's another metronome, the victim saviourhood mode, and many of us play into that. I played my own victim for 30 plus years. Did a lot of things happen to me that shouldn't, absolutely. But then you have to take a step back and go, well, maybe I'm playing into this a bit too much. And then a new way of thinking and a different path, and suddenly a lot of those issues goes away. And I think that's kind of what you found. But it's going forward, we're going to hear a lot of things that will be full confirmation of many of the things that have been said in the THI shows and many of the other alternative media. And they're not all going to be pleasant. In fact, most of them are going to be very unpleasant. But if you keep swinging at each individual piece of information, they've done this, this, this and this, and then go into the anger mode, you're pulling yourself off centre. So if you stay 45, 55, you've only got a 5 degree to pull yourself back in. But if you're going 90-10, you've got a long way to get back to the centre and the balance and the calm, which then ends the loose farming. Because they don't want people balanced, centred, grounded and shielding and calm. Because there's no hooks then. And this is the key. So the fact that you have been able to be truthful to yourself means your shadow work is a lot more minimal, because you've kind of dealt with it going along. And those that chose to ignore it are going to, at this time, are going to find it rather difficult to deal with. And this is why a lot of people surrounding all the listeners are having difficulty with family members, friends, loved ones and general work associates, because they're all losing it. And the reason they're losing it is within the time of our own judgment, not somebody sitting on a cloud passing judgment or at pearly gates. You judging yourself. And a lot of people won't like their shadow sides, what they've allowed themselves. Yes, many people have gone through bad traumas and they have to deal with that, but a lot of it has been our own doing. And that is the biggest hurdle a lot of people are going to have to overcome, of how easy we've given our power away. Eric? Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm here. No, I definitely agree with that. And, I'm somebody from early on. The funny thing real quick about balance is that, it's, in my nature, it's kind of, it takes effort for me to stay balanced. I don't get depressed or, that kind of thing, but I can get fired up real easy, So maintaining calm, I have thick skin where I can take it, but when it gets there, it gets there. But the funny thing is, and this is what I mean about the two fish going in separate directions. As, in elementary school, I used to figure skate. And then in junior high, I played hockey. Same thing, opposite ends of the spectrum, and I enjoyed both. But the funny thing is though balance is a struggle for me, both of those take extreme balance to be able to do, which I found funny.
Yep. Yeah, they're all has an overall purpose at the end of the day. There's things we do in our lives, and there's people we meet, we don't know why we met them or why we made lovers with certain people because it's completely fell apart. You're thinking, you know, why didn't I see the signs? Why did I stay in this failed marriage or failed union so long? Because it's a lesson to be learned. And more of us are learning the lessons. Did I stay in that relationship? Like myself, for example, did I stay in that relationship that long because I was insecure? Absolutely. If I stood in my own power, the minute I stood in my own power, it fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her to step her into her own power, and she didn't want to do it. And so that journey ended, and a new one started. So, but that is how it takes place. It's like people ask me, I got offered whole complete radio stations paid for, 3 different people, while I was the host at Cosmic Voice. And I said no. If I'm meant to have my own show, something will take place to put that into action. If I'm not meant, it won't take place. Well, obviously, I was meant, because that's the way it took place. And it always, people often get to maybe 45, 50 and do life reviews of themselves. Maybe in this time we should do it on a monthly basis. What have we done?
Yeah, that would be.
It's something that people really need to consider, not when they get to a certain age and where I'm in the alleged end period of this lifetime. How about we reassess ourselves on the first day of each month and go, well, on the first day of last month, I wanted to improve this, and this, or I wanted to do this, and that. How far have I gone with it? Do I need to repeat it next month? Or do I put a new set of challenges forward?
Yeah, and it minimizes the amount, like what I kind of liken it to now, like people are being squeezed like a pimple, and you can either address it or eventually you're going to pop. So addressing it on a regular basis and minimizing, the buildup, would make the transition far smoother for each one of us.
Ignoring the problem never solved anything. Just festers. And this is the problem why I started mentioning in shows 2.25 years ago now, deal with your shadow sides, do your inner work, because if you don't make a start on it, your whole vessel is filled up with trauma and anger and things that didn't go right for you and things you may have done wrong and people have done wrong to you. And then suddenly you're learning truth on a massive scale. And when people tell me, we're not seeing change, I'm telling them, you're not seeing anything. Because the change is all around you. It's already started. So how can you absorb a truth or demand truth and truth outside of you if you are not truthful within your own self? How can you absorb the truth when you yourself are living in a lie? That you may be this person, and we've all done it throughout life, put facades towards people that makes us look more clever or more rich or whatever it is. But it's not the real you, is it? And the key at this stage is the real you is coming out whether you like it or you don't now. This is part of the mask of illusion. They're all dropping, and this is why people are exposing themselves for the real version. Now, if you don't like the real version of you, then you have to deal with it quickly, because it's all fallen down. Even yesterday, one of the people I have exposed for not delivering the truth in the alternative media. He literally outed himself, his past lives, yesterday. It's not a coincidence, because more and more are outing themselves for who they are, not the illusion. You had so much in the New Age movement, we're about freedom and we're about this and we're all love and light, and then they're backstabbing somebody. That's not love and light. And so people have to get it together and quick, because it's unfolding as we speak. It's been unfolding for many months now, and if you don't like the real version of you and you continue to put the facade to people that you're something that you're not, you're going to get exposed. And this is why a lot of people are struggling at the moment. They're going a bit nutty, because they're not liking themselves, because they've not been truthful with themselves. But we'll come through it, all of us. Right.
Agree with that, for sure.
You see the story of humanity's path to evolution in the base 10 number system. Can you, this will be interesting, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Numbers to me have always been a language of sorts. Since 2013, every single day, my attention gets drawn somewhere that has a number to it. And based on what I was thinking at the time, or maybe my actions or whatever was happening, that number was a message, quote unquote, either confirming, yeah, you're doing the right thing, keep moving forward, or, hey, maybe you need to rethink that and, take a step back, evaluate, regroup, and move forward. So numbers have always, made sense to me. And, and they hold truth, it's just like 1 and 1 is 2, it's truthful, there's no decorations and describers and anything like that. It's plain and simple. It's right there. So, and this is something that I don't know if it's out on the internet somewhere or exactly how I came about coming up with this, but it's something rather recent, actually just before I sent in a transcript to the show. But, so the base 10 number system, we start at 0. Source, infinite potential, the stillness before creation, and then the number 1, creation, or creation of a creator being, the beginning, and then 2, duality, so a creator being having to exist in duality, and 3 is body, mind, and spirit, and trying to balance that in duality. And then 4, to me, I'm going to bring up 2 names that are kind of buzzword names, but the Red Cross of the Knights Templar, or Knights of the Temple, and also the Rosy Cross from the Rosicrucians. The Templar cross, to me, has, or the ones I've seen, has a flared out, at the edges they're flared out in each direction. And to me that looks like a funnel or a vortex, or, even the spiral. So, and then the Rosicrucian cross is the same thing, but a rose in the center. And through Dan Winter's work, he maps like your frequencies through like a computer and does a printout of it, and or displays it. And so he mapped out the frequency that comes from the heart space. And it's, when you look at it, it looks like a rose. And the rose is actually the highest vibrational flower because it's shape, basically. So how that all ties in together is, if the rose is the heart chakra and the heart space, it's above, below, and on the earthly plane in heart space. So love for the planet, love above, and then love side to side to all the beings around you. The other part about the number 4 is you have 4 cardinal directions, and then you have 4 intermediary directions. So 4 is also free will and having the ability to make a choice and choose a direction. 5 is the human being, the star. If you put your hands out and spread out your legs, your shape as a human is very similar to a star. And the number 6 is, if you look at the number 6, it looks like it's a descent from above down to the physical plane. So number 6 is the human going into the physical planes. And the number 7 is transition or a bridge to the higher planes. And then 8, standing, right side up and not on its side, is the infinite human or multi-dimensional human in the physical and non-physical, which is the upper circle, and, making that transition to exist in a physical way, but also the non-physical way. And then 9 is conclusions and the ending, and returning from below up to the non-material plane. And then the number 10 is the creator being returning to source. And that's it.
Yes. Good explanation. And
it was just interesting how all the pieces kind of like fell together, and it was just one of those light bulb kind of things.
Oh, it's interesting stuff. You should write that up and put it on the both pages, because I think it will be of interest to a lot of people. Good stuff. So one of the numbers you mentioned about the creator, 0, and then 0 and 1 as a creator being. Can you tell us how you see intention resulting in karma as a creator being?
What started my pursuit to figure that out is just many times in my life there came that situation where something happened and then the words were spoken of, it wasn't my intention. And that just always rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm like, well, if it wasn't your intention, why did it turn out bad? And I just couldn't figure it out for the longest time. And this was intention. There's intention, intentionality, karmin, and karma. And those were 2 separate pieces. The first part, I figured, came from Richard Allen Miller, who's on Terry Cassidy's show. And the other one came from Cliff High, which when he discussed the word karmin. And that's when it finally all clicked to me. So intention is the plan or the aim. Intentionality is the quality of the intent. And I'll relate it into soccer terms. I like watching English Premier League and Spanish League soccer, and when there's picture perfect with finesse and skill, the announcers call that quality. So that's where the quality of the intent is intentionality.
Yep.
So you have a plan, and you have the detailed plan, and then you have Karman, Karman, which comes from it's like a Indian origin, and it means the act or the action. So you have the plan, it's a quality plan, now you go into action. Now, depending how quality your plan was and how well you follow through in action, it may result in karma, which is Karman without the N, or the incomplete thought or action.
Yep.
And then finally, it made all sense to me how you can go from, it wasn't my intention and something bad happened, you know. Now I understand. Somewhere along the line, the plan wasn't good, or the actions weren't following the plan, or whatever the case was. So it made sense now.
Absolutely. A lot of us are working out our karma at this time because a lot of mistakes were made in the past. Part of the problem, I feel, it's not the full excuse, because it never is the full excuse, is the interference and the lack of knowledge. The knowledge is the biggest loss we've faced on this planet, because if we were aware of what damage, for argument's sake, we discussed it earlier, cannabis and alcohol does, if we're told us in our teenage years that it causes holes in your soul, and we understand the reasoning and get a grasp of what soul is, would we still do it to the excess that some of us have done in our lives? And the answer would largely be no. If the people are told that GMO food has got no nutrients and no vitamins and none of anything that's beneficial, it's just an illusion of eating food, would they buy it? Well, if there's an alternative, no, they wouldn't. And so this is how we've played into the system, because we haven't dealt with the issues. We took the City of Light pill offered by the Draco. They will fix everything, they will clear the memory, no more pain, no more trauma. Well, if you don't have pain or trauma, you're not experiencing anything. You're just basically walking around like zombies. And those of you who have watched the series, the 100, it tells you. It shows you the City of Light, where people are just walking around oblivious to anything that's going on. And we have to stop doing that if we're going to go back to being what we were originally. Remember who and what you are. This version is not real, but we're applying it as real. And this is where the karma comes in, because you have the dark forces that have permeated this universe with the fractal virus and rogue groups, creating karma that keeps us in a lower cycle, so that we can't evolve. We're always stuck, we're always the children. But that doesn't mean to say that we haven't played a role in it, because we have. Because you can't go from creator being to being enslaved without giving so much of your own power away. We had all the abilities, the original soul has got all the abilities, and yet we end up trapped in a construct. And this is part of the karma, and people say, oh, it's really tough. Well, maybe it has to be that way for us to get us to realise of the mistakes we've made as a species. It has to be tough, because otherwise we get convenient again and we'll repeat the same mistake. The idea is to end this loop, construct, AI, psychopathic overlay once and for all. So it never, and the inhabitants, when we go back out into the stars, recognize it right from the off and go, that is a no-no. That's the overall lesson of us on planet Earth. So that when we end this lifetime and we go out, because we're not enmeshed in soul traps anymore, we recognize this construct for what it is. Yes, it might be fun in parts, but it's overall, it's damaging. And we're all paying a karmic debt in many ways for the mistakes made by some of us who are in here, were here 16,500 years ago and signed that treaty. Those who were here at the beginning are now here at the end. Lots of so-called bigger names of the past are here now because it has to be fixed. So this kind of rolls into your next one, which is your experiences with illusion, belief, and belief systems, and how we can escape that.
Yeah. I like to try to take the polarity out of things. So I'll take words that, generally have a maybe negative connotation and see if I can find a similar aspect that takes that polarity out of that word. And one of them is illusion. It's a facade. It's, fake, or however you want to describe it. A hologram. Yeah, a trick. But the thing is that, we can look at illusion as a negative way, but there's also those times where we create a positive illusion for ourselves that is beneficial. I'm sure people have experienced points in time where you're, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. And if you look at, the facts, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. And then you tell yourself, but everything's going to be okay. And I just believe that everything's going to be all right. So essentially you've created an illusion and used it in a positive way, but we don't call it an illusion. That's faith.
Yeah.
But essentially it's an illusion because in reality that shouldn't have been possible because of what your situation was there, but you made it possible through your belief,
Yeah.
And then belief is an interesting word that if you look at it and you take the F off, it says be lie.
Yeah.
So belief is almost giving life to the lie or the illusion that makes it real.
Can I just interject here, because something's just come to me. The old way of lettering things, the S was written as an F. So be lies. So they're telling you to be the lies. Sorry.
Well, that makes perfect sense, and it confirms it more for me in that sense. And it's also a part of their inversion tactics where it's, lie is a bad, has a negative connotation. So if, giving life to something is being the lie, then, there's that contradiction that people sometimes can't see past, just the word. But, the trick is, with me, I can create my own illusion, good or bad. I can be, however it is. And I can't really, I can change it and be proactive and all those kind of things, but it's something that's, there for me. But it's understanding on, what's an illusion that I don't want to give life to, or I don't want to be a reality, and letting those go, and then giving life to those illusions or whatever the case is that are beneficial but may not seem that they're tangible, but with your belief, they become tangible.
Yes.
And then on the platforms of belief side of it is, like I said, I like to try to take polarity out of things and look at things objectively and stuff like that. And, you know, during the past, like, I've tried to, you know, we all trying to figure out our way. So you know, see, I was born into a family that was Catholic. You know, I knew that wasn't the way for me, you know, from the gate. Just the Eucharist and drinking the wine just seemed like cannibalism to me from the beginning. And I was just like, this is weird. I'll stick it through. But as soon as I have the ability to make the choice for my own, I'm out of here. So, you know, I start looking at, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism and like the shamanic practices and Native American cultures and things like that. And I just see so many similarities between them that they all, like, they're just a platform of belief, a set of procedures or things that you believe that if you do that, then the result you want will happen. So, you know, like, there's a chant, you know, they call it a chant in Buddhism or Hinduism, but in magic, it's considered an incantation or enchantation. Yeah. So essentially, there's those similarities on a principle level. The details are different, but in, you know, principality, very similar. And the thing that really kind of rang that bell for me is I had been watching a documentary on shamans in the rainforest, and one of the shamans was saying a chant over a cup of some type of medicine he had brewed, and that chant is known as or at least I knew it as either a Hindu or Buddhist chant, but yet this shaman on a completely different continent is using it in the same way. So it's like I keep seeing these similarities between these different things that now it's kind of like it blurs the lines that they're really that different. And it's, you know, even magic, you know, it has a horrible connotation, but there is the white side to it. Yeah. But it's how you use it, you know. And that's just an interesting thing that I saw, that, you know, people create that line of separation that I'm this and I'm that and we're different, when if you really look at it in principality, you're not.
Yep. So the last section of today's show is the true meaning of words, and you picked out three in particular: soldier, warrior, and zealot. Can you give us some details on that?
Sure. And that's, you know, another, and I could say this is thanks to THI, where I started to look at words differently and seeing the true meaning, you know, in words. And, you know, the soldier, the warrior, and a zealot are all similar in the sense that they fight. But I'll differentiate, you know, between them, and at the end there may be a part that maybe, you know, rubs somebody the wrong way because it's a little bit controversial, but it is what it is. Soldier. Yeah. If you look at the words, it says it right there. I resold. You know, so the soldier resold himself to the state or to somebody else. And that's, you know, that's sad to say, but it says it right there in the word, in an anagram. And
it also says sol, meaning sun, dire. So
exactly.
The person dies under the sun.
Exactly.
Sacrifice, basically what it is. It's soldier is sacrifice. Solar sacrifice.
Yeah, and see, I didn't even think of it on that level, but it just even evolved that even further, you know, which many do that in unawareness, or, I mean, they take orders and they should be their own man and make their own decisions and live within their moral compass, but, you know, there is a benefit of the doubt, quote unquote, and not pointing the finger. But the interesting one to me is warrior. So you have war with 2 R's, and then you have I, and then you have or. So war only when it's I or somebody else. So the warrior is more of the defensive fighter, I guess you could say. Yeah. You know, they defend their homeland, and then, or defend whatever the case is they're defending. They're acting in a defensive manner and not an offensive manner. And it's, you know, it says it right there. War only when it's I or somebody else. So if my existence is threatened, then I won't be eliminated. And, you know, that's where I think the term works correctly when you talk about light warrior. It's somebody who's in defense of it, but not somebody who's, and I'll discuss next, the zealot, which is another light warrior, but
Eric?
Not defensive. Yes.
I've kind of, no, carry on. I've kind of lost my thread then. I was going to say something to chime in on that, and I've kind of lost my thread. No, you carry on. I'll probably bring it back up in a minute.
And then the last word is zealot, or lot of zeal, full of zeal. And that word is kind of like, I would put that as somebody, you know, we're going to wipe them out of their existence. We're going to chase them to all aspects of the galaxy, and we're going to wipe them all out because we're fighting for the right side, and they did bad, so all of them need to go. So the zealot is someone that doesn't take into account, you know, how precious life is and creation is, where the warrior may do the same deed, but in doing something like that, how do they feel after? You know, I'll use like the example of, if you've seen Avatar, you know, the main female character in there, she kills like some animal, and then she cries over it because she had to kill an animal. But she knew that there was no other choice if she was to survive or not. So she did what she needed to do to preserve the self, but she still was sad because a being lost its life. And that's where I would classify a zealot versus a warrior, where, you know, a zealot is somebody who is fighting, they may be fighting for the right reasons, but what happens when there's no more fight and all you know how to do is fight? That's when the zealot has the potential of turning into the new dark, because all you do is fight and you have no respect for life and creation.
I've just remembered, because I think it's important to add it into this piece, the term warrior. And what you stated was correct, and the fact that it's more defensive. And this plays into the Tuesday show, where we spoke about sovereign nations. Only the sovereign are not allowed to attack. So they can only fight when they're attacked. So they're in defensive warrior mode. And this is part of the prophecy. When the fifth element arrives here, with the warrior, to do with the tribal treaty, then everything changes. So the warrior term is about sovereignty. And so you only go to war if somebody decides to attack you. As a sovereign, you are not allowed to attack others. So.
And that's, I mean, very timely in that information you presented on Tuesday in relation to that. You know, and that's how I see it. You know, I avoid conflict at all possible costs, and I try to seek every single possible alternative to that. But if it comes down to it, then, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Right. We've kind of come to the end of the show. I want you to have your final say before we go into your final piece of music, which is Mariah Carey and Hero.
Another, wide range. You could see the wide scope of how my life is from the range of music that I all listen to. Yeah. And they seem like they don't all go together, but they all mean something to me in some way and have value to me in that way. Probably final words would be, I'm very thankful for THI and what THI stands for, and, the platform that's presented for people to be able to express themselves and find a peer group and community to share things that, you can't really talk to people in your everyday life because they think you're crazy for talking about that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely very thankful for, THI and all that are a part of it and make it what it is. And then I would say this last song, Mariah Carey, Hero, is there's no saviors coming for you. Look inside yourself and be your own hero. And that's all I got to say today.
Absolutely. And thanks for giving us your time and your opinion and your insight and your journey and your path. Keep going. You're doing rather well.
Thank you, Thomas.
Right. I hope you enjoyed today's show. As it stands, that I have 2 more guests to interview, unless somebody puts another application or proposal in. There will be no Evening with Thomas next Sunday, but I'm still on air. I will be on the Open Your Mind radio show in Ireland, and that's always a fun show because I don't have to prepare for it. They just ask me questions and I answer, so it's a bit easier on me. So it's that's next Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So look forward to that. We'll be back next Thursday with the normal, in inverted commas, show. And hopefully we will have 1 or 2 more of the Tuesday style shows in the next couple of weeks or month. We'll see. So thanks to Eric Lewis. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams, and it's Mariah Carey and Hero, and bye for now.